Welcome to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we are going to continue on our discussion regarding used inventory and used products that can be properly tracked in your store. We're going to talk today about trade-in inventory. So trade-ins specifically would be products that your customers bring to point of sale, and the value of that trade-in is deducted from the live transaction, which is then turned around and received in as product for you to resell as well. So we're going to take a look at the process behind that in version 12. We're going to take a look at a few of the things that you can make adjustments to as far as things like taxes and so forth. And then we will have time for any questions, of course, that you might have about this process. I'm going to apologize in advance. I am recovering from COVID, so I'm going to do my best to mute the mic when I feel coughs coming on so as not to blow everyone's eardrums out. But getting back to kind of our standard game plan or playbook, if you will. If you are attending today, great. I'd love to see you and have you say hi and make sure that I know you're here. So over to the right is a chat tab in next to the playlist tab of the upcoming live streams. Make sure you click on that, and then down at the bottom is a nickname button. Click on that, go ahead and put in your name, and then that way you can chat at me with any questions or just to say hi or anything like that. I would love to see you and help out wherever I can. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and switch over to my main AIM screen here. So like I was saying, trade-ins originate at point of sale. Ideally, they're going to originate as part of an actual customer transaction as opposed to a quick sale. So when you're going into point of sale, it's recommended that you capture that customer information. Again, it's very easy to do so with a customer driver's license or state ID. You can scan the barcode on the back of that to capture the customer info with the add customer function. For the purposes of our time today, we're just going to stick to my good old guinea pig here, Mike Anderson. So, as part of the standard layout of the point of sale screen right here, if you can see me kind of circling my mouse up there, is the trade-in button. Now you can do this in any order you like. I'm going to start with the trade-in. You can see that by clicking on that trade-in button, it's going to come up and it's going to ask for two things and two things only. It's going to ask for a trade amount, and it's going to ask for a brief description of what the product is that's being traded in. Now, of course, depending on whether you are a music store or a firearm store or a hobby store or a golf or consignment, whatever it might be, you may or may not want to make sure you're capturing certain information here. You don't need a whole lot of detail. All you need to do is to be able to identify what this trade-in is later on when it's time to officially receive it into inventory. So, for our purposes today, let's say I am selling, I don't even remember what I have all in inventory. Let's just say I'm selling something and I have a used thing of whatever it is that I'm selling. So we're just going to say I'm going to give the customer $30 for a used widget. Just real plain and simple. We're going to go ahead and click OK on that. You can see that what that did was that put in exactly that description onto the transaction, and it put that in as a credit value. So in this case, trade-in used widget for $30. So you can see I'm actually now technically in the hole. So now whenever I go to make a sale of something, let me go ahead and just do an F6 search just to see what all I have in my training system. It's been a while since I've looked around in here. Let's go ahead, and I know I don't technically have any of them, but we'll fudge. We'll say that, oh no, let's go ahead and sell this ukulele with bag. There we go. Perfect. So we have 4 of those, and it's an accessory item. So we'll go ahead and select that. And you can see that it's now putting in that ukulele item. $45.55 is the selling price on that, less the $30 in trade. So I'm getting my total value of $15.55 plus my tax of $3.19. I now owe $18.74 on that. So ultimately, when I go ahead and tender that payment, it's going to ask for exactly how that $18.74 is being paid. Just for the purposes of speed, I'm going to say I paid $20 in cash, so I get $1.26 back in change. We're going to go ahead and finalize that, and then we'll get the the customer's receipt here. I'll just show the receipt on screen here. Okay, so we'll zoom out a little bit. So there we go. We can see the used trade-in for $30, the ukulele for $45.55. So the subtotal was $15.55, tax of $3.19, total due $18.74. It was paid $20 in cash and $1.26 given back in change. Okay, so that is the sale done. Now, that has not officially put that used widget into my inventory. In fact, one of the things, if you do a lot of trade-ins, one of the things you may want to get in the habit of doing, or even remember that AIM can set up automated tasks, and those tasks include reports that can just be automatically run on your behalf. And I've done a live stream on this, and there's videos on it all over the place. One of the things you may want to have done on a regular daily basis or whatever is in the inventory reports menu. There's a trade-in menu, and there's 2 reports, and the one I'm thinking of is trade-ins not received. Now, when you run this, you can run it with or without a date range. I'm just going to do it for today, just because that way we're going to see exactly the one that I just did. You could break that down further by location if you so desire. But what this will do is this will show you the date of the transaction, the invoice number it was on, who was the employee that was logged in at the time of the sale, who is the customer account that it was sold under, and then what is the trade-in item. So let me see if I can't shrink that down a little bit more. So you can see it's showing there maybe for $30. So basically it's just giving you a synopsis of what was the trade-in items that are remaining to be brought in. So with that in mind, we can now go in and we can start to officially receive this and any other trade-ins in the system. And we do that by going into the modules menu, into inventory, to the add change inventory menu, and we go to the option called receive trade-in. If you do a lot of these, you may want to have these buttons front and center on your main menu. But main thing here is going to ask for who is the customer that this was brought in on. So we'll go ahead and re-pull up Mr. Anderson. There is my used widget that we had brought in, or that we had given $30 in credit for. So we can go ahead and select that. Now it's going to basically ask, what is the item, the SKU that this should be received under? Now, of course, I wasn't too descriptive with used widget, so let me just see if I have anything kind of off the top of the cuff that I could receive this against. Let's maybe pretend it's this compact holster here. Now, what you may want to be able to do is add a SKU on the fly, and you can do just that. You'll notice down here at the bottom, let me get my big coughing head out of the way, you can see there is an add button. So if you do not have an appropriate SKU that you could use for the purposes of receiving this trade-in, you could click that add button, and it'll basically bring you right into your add inventory screen, where you could then go in and basically establish all the criteria for whatever that SKU might be. You just want to make sure that you kind of finish out at ending up or setting up the item setup details. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm going to pretend that my widget, in this case, is one of these these holsters here, if I remember correctly. Or was it that one? Doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and select this. Actually, that's a target. Let's select this holster. Okay, so let's go ahead and select that. It's going to ask for the quantity, so I'm going to put that in as a quantity of 1, and it already has the cost here of the $30, and then it's going to go ahead and just keep the rest of those details as is. Now notice that I'm receiving this technically as an accessory item, so basically it'll just go ahead and up the quantity of that by the 1 that I am receiving in this case. AIM version 12 can receive accessories, unlike prior versions of AIM or AIM-SI, as it was formerly known as, where it would have to be specifically a serialized item. Let me just actually show you the difference between what this would look like if I were receiving this as a serialized item. So I'm actually hit cancel on this. So let's go back and receive that trade-in. So we go back to receive trade-in, pull up Mike, and bring in the widget. And let's go ahead and let's find a serialized item. Because if you're a firearm store or anything else that deals heavily in serialized pieces, this is going to be especially applicable to you. And for those of you who are in the firearms industry, it will be at this point where your acquisition record is created for the purposes of your A&D bound book. So let's go ahead and select, let's see, do I have anything that's kind of a low value serialized item? Let's go with, let's go with this item here, a Taurus. So actually that is a firearm. So let's go ahead and select that. And you can see now on this screen, it's actually got a lot more going on. So again, by default, it will keep the trade-in value as the cost. Siri, I'm not talking to you. And then it will go ahead and basically ask you for the rest of the details, starting with the serial number. You can go ahead and assign it a stock code if you would like. You can put in any other details you want. So let's just go ahead and I'm just going to generate a serial number here. And then, of course, if you want, you could print a label when this is all being saved. Let's just go ahead and hit save on this. And again, for those of you who are in the firearms industry, like I said, this is when it will pop up with the acquisition records. So for those of you who are not a gun store, this is something that all gun stores have to comply with the ATF in order for them to be able to sell and operate in firearms. This is something that records where the firearm comes from. That's a whole completely different area. We're just going to go ahead and save that, but then boom, now that is now officially in inventory, and it's immediately available for me to now turn around and sell, even that same day. Excuse me, just 1 second. So that's the basic gist of a trade-in, start to finish. Now, like I said, there's a few things that you may want to be cognizant of. For example, let's go back to, where's my mouse? There we go. Let's hop back into a point of sale. Pull up Mike here again. And let's say that the thing that we are selling, so let's just do an RT14 just to be quick and simple. We can see this is selling for $395. Let's say that we're also giving an equal trade value, so $395 for used thing. We don't really ever have to put used in there. It's kind of a given that it's used. Notice how it's still charging the tax on my transaction here. So technically, even though it's a complete trade-in wash, it's still wanting to collect tax on this transaction. Now this will vary from one state to the next, but if you do not need to collect the tax on the total value of the transaction, if you only need to collect the tax on the difference, there is a setting for that over in your location settings. So maintenance, general maintenance, and locations, because this again can vary from one store location to another. If you happen to be a store that has multiple locations, one in one state and one in another where the laws are different, you may want to keep this in mind. So at every location setting is what's called a setting for the trade-in tax code. And by default, it is tax on total. You can, of course, also change this to be one of these other three options. You can be tax rate 1 on difference, tax rate 2 on difference, or tax rates 1 and 2 on difference. Usually tax rates 2 and 1 and 2 combined are more for our Canadian store customers, where they have both the general sales tax, or the general goods tax, goods and services tax, I forget what it is, GST versus provincial sales tax, the PST. But let's go ahead and switch this to the tax rate 1 on difference, and now see what happens when we go back to point of sale. So we're going to redo that same thing, RT14, and do the trade-in now of the $395 for the thing, and you'll notice that it now has washed out that tax entirely. So if this is how you need it to be set, so that you only collect sales tax on the difference between the sale and the trade-in credit, then just keep that in mind. That is back in the location settings. It is the trade-in tax code. So that's basically it. That's what I wanted to talk about today. I'll probably keep it a little bit shorter, given my current state of affairs things here. But let me know if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer those as best as I can. Looking ahead at the upcoming schedule here for the rest of the we have one more webinar or live stream on used inventory here this month. We're going to be covering purchases. Purchases are where you buy a product outright from a customer. No trade-in, no consignment. Customer walks in and says, "How much will you give me for this? I need to sell it today." And that is what a purchase is. And that is what we will take a look at on Tuesday, the 28th. So 2 Tuesdays from now. And then looking ahead to the month of July, we have 2 webinars scheduled, one on Tuesday the 12th, and that's going to be where we will take a look at what we call assembled kits and package deals. So these are basically ways of grouping inventory together, either ahead of the point of sale or at the time of point of sale. We'll talk about what the differences are between the two and how they impact your inventory and your sales process. And then we'll wrap up the month of July and kind of quote unquote the second quarter of the year, the summer session, with another Ask the Professor. We did one back in spring, and it was hugely successful. We got a lot of questions answered that were just kind of quick one-off questions, so we'll be doing another one of those on Tuesday, July 26th. And the August and on live streams are still up in the air as far as what we're going to be covering for those topics. So if you have anything in particular that you would like me to cover during those sessions, we plan them every second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. Up at the top is a poll link here in the TriTech video page. So anytime you want a suggestion that you want to get through to me as far as a topic for discussion on these live streams, click that poll button and then go ahead and submit your ideas. I always take those into huge consideration because they're the things that you want to see me talk about and cough all over. So yeah, anything you want to see me talk about, drop a line there, and that will have a huge impact on what we talk about in August, September, and beyond. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we're going to go ahead and call this one a wrap for today. But if you were here, I appreciate your time and attention. If you're watching this afterwards, then I apologize once again for all of the coughing. Hopefully I will be back in a better coughing situation for the second live stream this month and beyond. So thanks so much. Hope you're all doing great, and we'll see you soon.